You guys remember a famous saying once uttered by a former Phoenix Suns head coach? Well done is better than well said. Psychos and sickos unite for another edition of the PHNX Sun Show, of course, presented by our friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app, use code PHNX365 when you sign up, and find out why, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary. Over at Bet365, happy exit interview day. I'm Erik, that's Stephen, Gerald, who was there, and Noah, who was also there, taking all the video that we are going to be playing for you today. We do have the full availability from James Jones, Josh Bartelstein, and Mat Ishbia that you can dive into after the show up on PHNX Sports. So hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 40K. Hit that like button while you're here, but we're going to be taking you through all of the highlights, maybe what feels like some lowlights. But Gerald, you were there. You asked some questions. Were they hard enough?
I hope so. We'll see based on the reaction to today's words. But interesting press conference for sure. Like, Mat Ishbia spoke to us for nearly half an hour. And then we got James Jones and Josh Bartelstein for about 12 minutes on top of that. So there is a lot to sift through here, but I think the number one theme, and we'll get to this in opening remarks pretty quickly, was setting a tone, setting an identity, setting a culture. That is what Mat Ishbia is focused on right now. And while there were not a lot of specifics into what that actually looks like, I think it's similar to last year when he came in. He came from out of town to evaluate the job that Frank Vogel is, to speak with players, to speak with front office people, and figure out their plan of action from here. I'm guessing that's probably what's going on behind the scenes at the Suns practice facility today.
We have a super chat from Psycho Blue. Of course, one of our diehards. You can become a diehard today for just $36. Help us beat all the other cities by gaining the most diehards during the sale. Steven, you want to read Psycho Blue super chat for us?
Yeah, for sure. We got a $9.99 super chat from Psycho Blue. We appreciate you. Basketball Cthulhu appreciates how Ishbia admitted that Bud was the only thing that didn't require methodological evaluation. He also appreciated Ishbia using the A word, unlike some owners in this league.
I'm assuming accountability.
Yeah, yes. I think so.
Yeah,
That's
probably not the other A words.
I would hope not.
Yeah,
no
probably
others.
not.
Any of those other A words that you might be thinking of.
Maybe we missed it, and if we did, we're going to hear it today. We got a lot of sound bites, so you're not going to hear a lot from us three. Of course, we'll give our reactions. We want to make sure that all of you who are not able to catch any of this or the videos that Gerald posted on our socials are up to date. So let's just start it off with Mat Ishbia's
Light goal
125.
There we go. That's
something
good.
light.
So make sure you check off your boxes.
I'm checking off the boxes.
It's all about setting tones around here.
Well, it is. And this is what Mat Ishbia did to set the tone at the beginning of his exit interview.
First off, embarrassing season, right? Disappointed, awful. I watch every game like all of you guys do. No one's proud of it. No one's happy with it. From me to the front office, to the coaches, to the players, to the marketing executive, to the security guards. Everyone's disappointed, embarrassed. And it was a failure, right? We struggled. We didn't do a good enough job, and we got to do stuff different and change to be better. So there's no running from that. Obviously, I'm very disappointed. I think all of you guys are. It wasn't fun to watch, right? It wasn't fun to watch our team lose and not compete at the level that we all expected. And so, I'm here for it. I'm here to be accountable, just like, our players, coaches, front office, everyone is too. And so disappointing is the right word. Embarrassing, you can use whatever words you want to use on it, but not happy with the season. With that being said, I'm here talking to you guys, and we're going to make some changes, right? And as the owner, my job is to, make those changes and do things differently, because what we just tried and did over the last 2.5 years has not been as successful as we hoped. A lot of people would have seen the things we did and said, just like a lot of people picked us to, be third best chance to win the NBA championship this year. So a lot of people thought it worked. We thought it would work. It didn't work. There's a lot of people that thought that a couple years ago when we made Kevin Durant trade. Like people, like smart people can all think it makes sense, and then looking back, it's like it didn't, and it didn't work. So we will make changes. The biggest change that I want to talk about is, on me. I'm accountable to this one, which is I have to do a better job of setting the identity of the Phoenix Suns. I've been out in Phoenix for the last 2.5 years. I love the community. It's great. The fans are great. I want to put a team out there on the court that everyone's proud of. And proud of has to have an identity that's, similar to Phoenix, with some little bit of grit, some determination, some work ethic, some grind, some joy, and so we just haven't had that. We did it a different way and it didn't work. And so I will do a better job as the owner of setting the tone on the vision. Just like there's other organizations, you can talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you kind of know what they mean when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, or even my old team, Michigan State basketball, you kind of know what you're gonna get when you talk about Michigan State basketball. What is Phoenix Suns basketball? And so that's on me. That's a change that's coming, and it will be undeniable. You will know the difference next year. There will be seasons in my next 40, 50 years with you guys that we lose more games than this, but we will feel much better about it because we'll have an identity, and we'll play, and we'll compete, and you'll be like, they were fun to watch. The fans enjoyed it. And now to give a credit to the fans, and the reason I'm here today is to speak to the fans and to all of you guys, like our fans were stuck by us. And you know what? There's times that I could see that they wouldn't want to, right? And they were probably disappointed and felt bad about the team. And I get it. I watched every game, every second of every game too. And so it was a disappointing season, but we will set the identity of the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Suns basketball, and it's going to be very much aligned with this community, with Phoenix. And I'm excited about those changes, and you're going to see them, and it will be undeniable, and it will be coming soon.
It's kind of like what we've been saying for a while now. It's not lost on anyone involved, fans, players, coaches, front office, Ishbia, that this was an embarrassment of a season. Comes right out and admits that. I think that's a good start. I think in terms of setting an actual identity, that's where I would like to get into more specifics moving forward, because it's one thing to say, like the Pittsburgh Steelers or Michigan State or all these teams that have identities that you want to have that with the Suns. And I think that's their next step, is figuring out what that looks like. But it's another thing to kind of go into a press conference where the futures of these front office guys are up in the air and not really provide much clarity on what that looks like moving forward. I appreciated that he admitted that it didn't work, that they thought it would work and that it didn't, and that now they course correct. But how they course correct is going to, and this is something he said a couple of times throughout the press conference. I understand nobody's going to feel optimistic or believe right now until we actually do these things, but this is what we're focused on changing.
The first step in change is to take notice. Mm-hmm. And it feels like they've done so thoroughly for the last month and a half, 2 months since the ESPN hit with Ishbia saying that he's going to be assessing everything kind of surfaced. It feels like everything's been under a microscope or some sort of critical lens since then. I appreciate him taking the time and probably going overboard with the time that they actually wanted to allow him for, with everything that he'll be speaking to, which we'll get more into going forward. But noticing is one thing. Now it's about following up with actions.
Yeah, I think that's my big takeaway. I really appreciate what was said in a lot of different spots. Some of the things I have questions about that we'll get to later. More clarity on front office and changes and whatnot that we'll be showing you guys later in the show. But they're saying the right things. They're not talking about doubling down or just trying to scapegoat Mike Budenholzer, but we will be talking about the coach. There just needs to be actual actions that follow up, but you can't do that right now. This is just the first step. So those were the opening statements from Mat Ishbia. We also heard from James Jones and Josh Bartelstein. This is what they had to say before taking any questions as well.
Obviously, it's a very disappointing season, as Matt said. I know he takes accountability. James and I take a ton of accountability as well. We're partners in this, and we were set to go build a team that would win and win at the highest level and compete. And winning 36 games is not acceptable. So our job is to fix that. And I think it starts with, as Matt said, defining what a Phoenix Suns player looks like, how we want it to feel. That was the hardest part for us, is watching these games and seeing we weren't connected, the energy, we weren't proud of it. So that work starts now. It's on us to do it, and we're excited to go do it.
And echoing what Josh and Matt said, I mean, we all know we had high expectations coming into the season. We didn't meet them and for various reasons, but ultimately getting back to our identity of playing defensive basketball, being great on both sides of the ball, And more importantly, playing with an edge and playing with passion is something we have to get back to. And so going forward, those will be key points of emphasis for us to make sure that we're going to have seasons like this where we show up and we go home feeling like we didn't leave it all out there on the floor. So,
again, talking about playing to an identity, James Jones mentioned the defense in particular. Obviously, they were 27th in defensive rating this season. That's nowhere near good enough. And I think that plays a big role moving forward in what type of identity they're going to set, because you heard them mention things like grit and grind and defense and all these different things, and they had very little of all of that. So it doesn't sound like much right now, but it is something to bear in mind that this is their main focus when they're looking towards who they're going to hire as their head coach, who they're going to bring in with trades or free agency. I think there's going to be a concerted effort to make sure that the players that they are getting are not just talented or a collection of good players, but players that will actually fit and do the dirty work moving forward.
Being a descendant of Heat culture,
yeah,
I already thought, and it's on me, I'll take accountability for that, but I assumed that was already the lens that James Jones was looking at the crop of players that they would ultimately decide from.
Sure.
Before actually pushing things across the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's very clear that if that was what was taking place prior to the last couple of seasons, definitely got lost in the shuffle, or they lost the plot in terms of that evaluation. And that's how they got into this situation where it's just high variance. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's very bad, but there's no streamline that success can be built off of from that. And that's one of the biggest things that they need clarity with going forward as well.
There's one word I muttered to myself, and I think everybody from Suns media to Suns fans to national perspective asked themselves this whole season, why? Why has this been the way that it is? Why did this season end up so bad? Well, this is what Mat Ishbia had to say when he was asked.
There's a lot of reasons. The way I look at it is, I do think that we had a much better roster than a 36-win team, right? And I think on the court, every game, we did not play better than a 36-win team. We did not compete hard enough. We did not make adjustments well enough. There's a lot of things we could have done differently. But from my view, it ties to, we didn't play the way a lot of other teams were playing, and really what we believe in here, which is with a lot of, there's a lot of grit, defensive. I mean, you can talk about defense was 28th in the league or whatever it was. Like, that's just not what we're going to be about, right? And so I think there's a lot of things, and there's a disconnect from what we believe we should be playing like and what we actually saw on the floor. And that's why we made one change so far, and we will make other changes to make sure that the Phoenix fans know what to expect and are proud of what we have out there.
So again, grit, defense, all of these qualities that they're going to be trying to apply to the roster moving forward. I think at one point during his talk about coaches and all that good stuff, he was mentioning that, like, it's one thing if we in the front office, if me as the owner believe this is what Suns players should look like. It's another thing if the coach comes in and says, well, yeah, that's fine, but this, and this, I don't really care as much about. They're going to be looking at someone who is aligned and have that alignment all the way through, because like we talked about for most of the season, this season, and especially last year, the Suns didn't have an on-court identity. They didn't have a playing style that you could point to every night and say, this is what we're going to expect. So it's good that they're aware of that. But again, it's all going to be talk until they can follow through and prove it with their actions, that they do know what they want to be about and that they can actually execute the moves to bring in players that will be about the same things.
Yeah, the shared vision part is what's been missing from all the decision-making people in the room for the Suns the last couple of seasons. And that's why the variance has been what it is. I also agree that there aren't that roster wasn't a 36-win team.
Yeah.
But who was being brought in and the channels of communication or lack thereof from the higher-ups is why things stem down to the bottom, which is the players being last in terms of those decisions being made. That's why they got the result that they got. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's a lot of reflection of self, but also of delegates and who's in what position and what their responsibility was and everything. Sounds good, but now it's time to follow up with actions.
Yeah, everywhere in life, there's always somebody who's like, oh, yeah, I know I'm responsible for this. That's on me. I'll change. I'll do better. And it sounds great when they tell you. And then if they have to continue to tell you that every couple of months that they're going to do better and they're going to change it, Okay, well, then that's a pattern. And right now, through the first couple of seasons, there feels like a pattern with this team, and they have to break that to earn the faith and the trust of the fans back. So we just went to why, but what about when? When did James Jones and Josh Bartelstein know that something was stinky with the Phoenix Suns? Something was off. This is when.
I'd say around the beginning of the year. Matt said it. We talked at the beginning of the year, this new year in January, and said that it just doesn't look like what we envisioned. We aren't playing hard consistently. We aren't executing on offense. There are too many flashes of greatness, but at the same time, too many lulls. And all the while, we're not seeing improvement. And as the league gets better, like, you also have to give credit to the NBA. The NBA, the level of competitiveness, a lot of teams were moving forward with the way the NBA is built now. Defensive aggression, athleticism, playing in transition, offensive rebounding, attacking the rim. All of those things were things that we did not see progress in. And so how many pieces away are we? We have players on our team right now who have the ability to shift gears. It's not that we don't have the capacity to do it. We just didn't demonstrate it. And so we'll change and improve internally, and then we'll look to see what avenues in the draft and free agency that will allow us to build a better team. There's no magic number. You know, we're out here saying we need to add 2 players, where every other team that's competing or that's not in the playoffs, they're saying the same thing. We just need to make sure that the guys that we do have understand how we play, how we will play, how we compete, and then we can go out there. Once we set that vision for our franchise, we can go and find out how many guys out there actually can do it, and then we'll try to get as many of those as we can.
I kind of laughed a little bit when the question was, when did you know something was wrong? And he said at the beginning of the year. he did clarify he meant at the beginning of the calendar year, which at that point, I think they had lost 3 straight games. They were 15 and 15 or 15 and 14, lost 3 straight games. So they were under 500 at that point. Not long after that, Bradley Beal gets benched. The whole stuff with Jusuf Nurkic kind of hits the fan. So it makes sense. It's not comforting. But they did, like, I think Ishbia brought this up as well. They tried different things to try and get it back on track, like the Nick Richards trade, like getting Nurkic off the books, all of these different things. It just didn't work. And so now they're in a position where you have to reevaluate pretty much everything outside of your franchise player and adjust moving forward.
If the timestamp was the end of December, my immediate question is, when was the trade deadline? And why wasn't there more urgency behind the efforts to bring new, fresh pieces into the room? Not saying that would have solved everything either, but I feel like if you recognize that there's issue with something, either you're allowing it to persist or you're going against the grain to shift the direction that things are headed. The train was going downhill in the wrong direction by that time. We all knew that. And then the other big thing for me, talked about evolved philosophies in terms of the way rosters are being built. I hope that also goes in alignment with the next coach that's coming in, because you can't play the stale style of basketball that's heavy leaning on one side of the ball that completely ignores the other side and expect for one side's strengths to outweigh the weaknesses. That's not how that works. That's not how any of the teams that are contending in the NBA right now are built or sustained and got to where they are.
Well, you mentioned coach, kind of going off both of your points real quickly here before we hit a break. There's reports out from Gambo that they don't have a list together about their potential coaching replacements. And with the way that they spoke about Mike Budenholzer today and the problems that they had with how he coached and the fact that they knew at the beginning of the year that everything fell off, my question is, why don't you have a list yet? Why are you not prepared to make that next move, considering one of the other things they mentioned when it came to finding the right fit for the next coach is that they need to take more time to do it than what they did before? Well, seems like you had time, but we'll tell you about what they all had to say about the front office, Mat Ishbia's involvement, and what they do have to do to get the next head coaching hire right. And we're going to do all of that right after our first break. The Phoenix Suns need new building blocks, but what about you? You know the cells in your body is actually the building blocks of life, and Timeline is a supplement that works with those cells to help give you more energy, feel stronger during workouts, and preserve health and mobility as you start to age. And no matter how old you are right now, we all have one thing in common. We're all aging. Some of us faster than others, but we're all aging. The patented ingredient is MitoPure, a postbiotic nutrient that clears out all of our dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cells' battery packs. With regular use, you'll see and feel the difference in the form of improved energy levels, better workouts, faster recovery, more endurance, and even more than that. MitoPure is shown to have a double-digit increase in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. That's a big win. And right now, Timeline is giving you 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/PHNX today to get started. That's timeline.com/PHNX. Of course, the code is PHNX. And if you are looking to sell your home, write down this number right now if you want a guarantee. 480-776-5231. 480-776-5231. If you want somebody who will guarantee to sell your home for 100% of the market value, or she'll pay you the difference, you need to call the Carol Royce team. Not just because she's going to bring you multiple cash offers, not just because nobody knows the Valley better than the Carol Royce team, but because they're not just here to get in, get out, make a quick buck, and get out of there like some of these other real estate companies. No, they actually care about you making the right decision. In fact, if she doesn't think it's the right decision to sell, she's going to tell you it's not the right decision to sell, even if that means that she doesn't make money. Call Carol Royce today at 480-776-5231 or visit Carol online at carolroyceteam.com and tell them PHNX sent you. That's carolroyceteam.com. Terms and conditions do apply. Once again, thanks to all the psychos and sickos hanging out with us on a Thursday afternoon. Like goal is 125. Hit that like button. Become a diehard today for just $36. That's right.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. You know, I asked Stephen, who's one of our current diehards in the chat, Stephen Weiss, and I asked him, I'm like,
Great name, by the way.
great name. Is being a diehard worth the discounted $36? He says, well, it's actually worth $200, but if you want to charge me $36 and give me a free t-shirt along with it, then I'll take that. So get access to all of Gerald's wonderful writing and exclusive content that you're going to get, plus so much more. Steven and I are going to cook up some fun stuff for you as well this offseason. Go phnx.com/join to get that discounted offer through the NFL draft. Do we have anything we want to say or get off our chest before we continue to roll through some sound bites here?
Just real quick. Dietrich asked, how can the Suns front office say they tried when I feel like they only focused on trading KD, who was one of the few good things about the team? Why wasn't Beal getting traded or waived more of an urgency? I'm sure the Suns were exploring trades for Bradley Beal. Waiving him wouldn't have done anything because his money still would have been on the books. They just didn't, and this is true, they didn't come to him to ask him to waive his no trade clause because they didn't have a trade that was set up. They wouldn't have gone to him with a trade scenario until they had one worked out. They weren't able to work one out because no one wanted Beal mid-season. Hopefully in the offseason that changes to some degree, but we will see. But yeah, obviously it's a results-based league. So you can say they tried to do this or they wanted to do this, but it's all about what you actually get done. So that's a fair point.
So Gerald, you did ask a question.
Yes.
You actually asked the first question to Mat Ishbia about the front office. Do you want to set up what you asked before we play his answer?
Yeah, so his whole opening spiel was about we need to make change, we need to set an identity, and obviously Mike Budenholzer was the first change. So I asked, okay, in terms of making changes, how does that apply to James Jones and Josh Bartelstein moving forward?
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of change. Here's what I'll say. Coach Bud, that change was made. Didn't need more evaluation. Everything's going to be evaluated, but it's going to start with me being accountable and setting an identity, and then making sure that the identity we set for Phoenix Suns is set from the ownership. The fans are going to love it and be proud of it. The front office is aligned. The coaches are aligned. The players are aligned. And there's going to be players that sometimes we don't take the most talented player because they don't align with what we believe in. And so those are the changes I'm going to be focused on right now, and then they'll all will fall into line. And we are going to be making changes, and there's going to be things that are going to be different. And like I said, we will be better. You will enjoy watching our team much better next year, and that's my job. My job is to put up. Like I think there's a lot of things that I do as an owner. But one of the four things I talked about when I was just bought the team 2.5 years ago was winning. Right? Like we talked about. Community, I think we're doing a heck of a job. We talk about fan experience. I think we do a lot of things that other people don't do. I think culture, like we do a lot of great things. I had to do something. winning has not been where we want. And part of that is we had high expectations and we've missed the bell by a lot. Not just last year, but this year and last year, obviously. Or not this year, last year and this year. And changes are coming.
So again, no specifics, but changes are coming. There's going to be a lot of change. And he was saying with Coach Bud, like that didn't take much evaluation, which we kind of all knew would be the case.
Peace.
It was pretty straightforward what had to happen there. Now, like I said off the top of the show, I think now that he is in town, he is taking the time to evaluate what does need to change and how specifically it needs to change with that infrastructure in the front office. Just because Josh and James were there today, I don't know that necessarily means either of them are safe or either of them will continue operating in their current roles.
I'm tired.
Yeah, well,
I'm tired, man.
if you're tired, then we'll give you a little break. JJ and Bartelstein were also asked about if they see their roles changing because change has been mentioned so often.
I'll go first. As the CEO, Matt kind of said, when I met Matt 2 years ago, my job was to carry out his vision. And that's for the Mercury, the Suns, the business, the basketball, the Valley Suns now as well. And we've done a lot of those things to kind of hit on those pillars. And also to be able to advise and assist in basketball. So we've done a lot of really, really good things. And Matt thinks differently. He pushes us. I think that's why we've been celebrated a lot for doing those things on the business side. But winning matters too. So I feel comfortable in my role because I know that what he wants to do, my job is to be here every single day doing it. But we got to do better here, and we will.
And I just say, like, you can't win a championship or win multiple championships or be a high-functioning team or organization if you don't have balance and true partnership and collaboration. And so as things change, you use your specialty and your expertise to complement your teammate and make decisions and take a step forward and lead in certain areas when it's best for the team. And so me and Josh, we have a great working relationship. He's a leader whose charge is to make sure that Matt's vision for the franchise, not just the Suns, but the Mercury and the business altogether, that it's aligned and it's tied together. And my job is to make sure the how is done and executed flawlessly. And so that comes with me taking some of the initiative, but it's also being smart enough and aware enough to enlist the help of people whose true passion and true incentive is to make sure that this basketball thing runs right. And so we do it together. We'll always do it together. When it comes to basketball, that's me. That's my area of focus. I own that. I stand by that. And my job is to make sure we continue to improve. We change in the right ways. And if that means changing roles, if that means changing responsibilities, from year to year, those things change from moment to moment. But ultimately, whatever is best for the team is what we do.
There's problem identifying, and then there's problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is probably the easiest job in the league in terms of identifying what a problem was.
Yeah.
But the next step is going to be what's most important. Like, it's cool to hear everybody in the room saying, oh, yeah, he's a leader, he's a leader, he's a leader. There's no way you get to the point that you were at the depths of the season of underwhelming that you were at this season if you have leaders, because all of the things that slipped through the cracks that ultimately were just accepted instead of changed, they would have been nipped in the bud before it got to a point where things got alarming. Mm-hmm. Changes would have been made. People would have pressed specific buttons relative to their role to not allow for the ship to fail, the ship to sink. And here we are.
I was kind of interested to hear, like, because this wasn't my question. My question was more so about what their roles look like moving forward. And they kind of talked about what they are now a little bit. It felt like they were trying to position Josh as more of the business side of things and James as more of the basketball side of things. I think he even came out and said that, like, I'm on the basketball side of the equation. And again, we're going to get through a lot of comments that I'm sure a lot of Suns fans are not going to believe or agree with. What they said today was pretty consistent with what I've been told and what I've reported. But again, it's how much stock you want to put into what they are saying here. But yeah, Josh said, I'm comfortable in my role. James Jones said, if it has to change year in, year out based on what the team needs, I'm willing to do that. We will see if that's the case. I think them being there means that I don't know that they're necessarily going to be fired or what, but their roles might still look different even though they were there today.
They need to. The roles need to look differently. Listen, I understand that just because they're there doesn't mean that there's not going to be changes. However, I don't understand if there are going to be significant changes into who's making the basketball decisions to put these two out there to answer all of these questions. And speaking quite frankly, yeah, problem identifying is great. Where did all the problems come from, right? Roster construction. We put together a list of who's the most at blame, and those two guys that were just speaking were the ones behind some of the moves that had the most, if not the most, blame. Now, is there a place for both of them in the front office of an NBA organization? I'm sure there is. James Jones has nailed some draft picks, right? And we don't know how much his fingerprints are on those, but he's been at the helm for some good drafts, right? When it comes to the business side of things, the Phoenix Suns, the Mercury, the Valley Suns have done great things with Josh Bartelstein. That being said, there needs to be change. There needs to be a new number one voice. If you want to keep them around, that's great. There needs to be somebody from the outside brought in to take these problems that are very easily identifiable and not letting the people who made the decisions that led to those problems be the ones to try to solve it. So I'm not going to mince words in saying it's fine if they're still here. It is not okay if they are still here in the same capacity. Something has to change beyond Mike Budenholzer and beyond the roster, and it's not going to be ownership. So unfortunately for those two, something has to change with their roles, from my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for a lot of people, the assumption is that Josh Bartelstein came in and has been ruining things in the front office, or that Mat Ishbia, the owner, is making all of the decisions. And so I was glad that Mat Ishbia was also asked about who is actually making the basketball decisions in the front office.
I don't watch film. I don't scout players. We got great scouts, great front office. My role is to enable. So first off, my role is to put those people in those positions, right? And so putting the right people in the positions to make the right decisions. And then empowering them. So when someone comes to me about a trade and says, hey, we can do this, but it's going to put us over the luxury tax, my job is to say, as an owner, say, hey, if you really believe this guy will fit with our team, let's do it. What do we got to do to make it happen, right? And so if people you think I'm watching film, let's give credit to the scouts, and it's almost disrespectful to give me this credit in some of these things, or blame, whatever way you want to say it. Like, you think I interviewed Ryan Dunn and watched his film and watched 100 hours of work and called his college coach and decided that we wanted Ryan Dunn last year? No. James, Josh, the scouts, they picked Ryan Dunn. Now, when it came down at 22, when he was available, they're like, should we take him? We can move back and get him. I'm in that conversation with them. But I don't pick Ryan Dunn, so give kudos to those guys. And same thing, you think we sign a free agent, and it's oh, this free agent's gonna be fit. You think Mat Ishbia is watching film and seeing, is this guy gonna, I'm not good enough to do that. I'm not watching film and deciding this guy's gonna be a good fit because his mentality is that's not me, right? And so you can blame me. I'm fine taking the blame. But my job is to set the tone at the top. And I've done it. You can blame me for that because I've done a bad job. I think I did a great job with the culture, the fan experience, the community, and setting the tone. But I also listen to a lot of the media people and say, oh, the new owner, he's not supposed to get involved. So I almost let the NBA be the NBA, and I'm gonna change that, where I'm gonna set the tone on the vision of what Phoenix Suns basketball is about. And there will not be another season that I sit here with you guys, which I don't think any other owners will do this with you guys, and I'm here for it. I'm here to take the criticism, take the blame, and talk about everything. But I will sit here at the end of the next, there won't be another year I sit here at the end where you don't say, man, they didn't win as much, but those guys played hard. They were fun to watch. They competed. That's Phoenix basketball. Whether we win a championship or we lose 50 games, you'll have a different feel. And so, don't think that I'm going to actually go there and draft players or look at scout and film. That's not the owner. That's not me. There are some owners that probably do that. That's just not me. We have a collaborative group. I don't believe, and I know all the owners, I don't think there's an owner in the NBA that there's a trade that goes on that owner does not say go with it or don't go with it. I'm the same way. If you think I'm the one that sits there and says, hey, we got this guy, let me go through all the salary cap sheets and debate, that's the front office. That's Josh, that's James, that's Matt Tellem, and they come up with ideas, they call the teams, they bring the ideas, and they might say, let's do this, or say not, and then say, what do you think? And I'm in that conversation. Our coach is involved with that conversation too, but it's a collaborative effort, but I'm definitely not initiating draft trade idea. Like, once again, I run a mortgage company most of the day, and I'm very active, but I will, and going forward, just to be clear, I'm not going to shy away from it. I will do a better job, and I am accountable to setting the vision and the tone for the Phoenix Suns basketball organization, and I've not done a good enough job, so that it'll be very clear when a player is being traded for, that it's like, oh yeah, he's kind of like that. He fits that mold, and I will be part of that, and that's my job. But like, I don't know all 450 players in the NBA, and I definitely don't know every player coming out in the draft. And for people to think that I'm going to know that, or like people like this, oh, Ishbia, what a horrible decision. Like you can blame me for what you want, but I'm involved to a point, but I'm not analyzing film, etc.
Very curious to see what this next level of tone setting and attention to detail, et cetera, is going to look like, how that vibes with whoever it is that's going to be head coaching, and potentially be new in terms of roles of delegation for his Phoenix Suns going forward.
Absolutely. I've said this before last week. I don't think Mat Ishbia is the one evaluating players, but I think he is the one because of his willingness to just green stamp whatever comes his way, whatever's the most aggressive, competitive alternative. It has come with some shortcomings and some short-sightedness. And I think like he said, my job is to enable. I think he has enabled some of the worst impulses that haven't worked out well. And I say this being someone that agreed with the moves at the time and can now acknowledge that they haven't worked out. So it's good that they're understanding they need to pivot, they need to change things. But this is kind of what we've been saying. Like, Mat Ishbia isn't the one making the decisions as far as evaluations, but I do think he's played his role in contributing it by setting the wrong tone.
Yeah, we have more from Mat Ishbia, more from James Jones and Josh Bartelstein after our second break. I don't know how many times I can say it, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's true, but it is damn hot outside, or at least it's getting there. Today it was nice. You could go outside and spend time on your patio, but guess what? You're not going to be able to do that in about a couple weeks if you have not contacted our friends over at All Pro Patio Shades. You can extend your outdoor living space with a custom fit awning, hundreds of designs. You can choose to match your home or your outdoor patio, your furniture, whatever it is, or whatever your HOA needs. You can get that done with All Pro Shade Concepts, the most trusted local shade company in business for 20 years in the Valley. Started making window shades by hand for friends and family in Phoenix. Now they're one of the largest installers of patio roll-down shades and motorized awnings in the Valley. Of course, licensed, bonded, and insured, so you need to call this number, 623-204-1476, or visit allproshadeconcepts.com right now to schedule your free estimate. Plus, I got an estimate that I see you all at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass 1 week from today for the Cardinals Draft Day Watch Party. Join Bo, Johnny, and all the Cardinal diehards at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass in the Upper Deck Bar and Grill for an unforgettable NFL draft party and live show presented by, of course, Gila River Resorts and Casinos and Circle K. A $99 ticket that you get a 20% discount on if you're a diehard includes entrance to the Upper Deck Bar and Grill and, of course, the live show and all-you-can-eat dinner buffet from 5 to 7, drink tickets if you are 21 and over, and, of course, raffle tickets for great giveaways. There is only one rule, and that's you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And if you don't come by for the draft party, go for a staycation, go for a night out of gambling on their state-of-the-art gaming floor or sports gambling at their sports book. Plus, you can catch a concert or other live events there. But again, you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Once again, thank you all for hanging out with us as we take you through the latest and the greatest with Phoenix Suns exit interviews. You've heard a lot from Mat Ishbia. You've heard a lot from James Jones and Josh Bartelstein, but now it's time to hear about the next head coach. What is Mat Ishbia looking for in his fourth head coach in his tenure so far as Phoenix Suns owner?
We're going to look for someone that fits the vision of the Phoenix Suns basketball organization, someone that's going to live out exactly what I'm talking about, someone that's a little bit grimy, a little bit grinder, a little bit tough, have a little bit of that in them. You know, I joke, but it's true. Like, I'm no talent, all heart. That's my life. Like, I have no more. I wasn't born with a mortgage. Not like I will just outwork everyone. I'm going to have a coach, a front office, players that the Phoenix community will love, because it's going to be that. we'll hopefully get some talent too. And I'm not saying no talent, right? We got talent and heart and grind, but that's who I am. And so I'm looking for someone that's more aligned with that vision, and I have to define that vision. I'm going to work with the front office, and we're going to work with some of the players and the organization, and say, what does Phoenix Suns basketball really mean? And we're going to get a coach that doesn't tell me that they think that, but actually believes it in their heart, and that's where they come from, and that's how I think about it. And same thing all the way through front office. If we hire a new scout, we pick up a free agent, there's going to be a very clear line on that, and that's my job. And if it's not done, then blame me once again.
This is going to be the third year that they're hiring a new head coach, and I think it's going to be a very different type of coach than what we've seen in terms of two older retreads who, yes, they have won championships, but both were out of the league the year before. I think they're looking for someone probably younger, probably hungry, and fitting in with all of those traits that he was just outlining. I think, like I said, he mentioned that don't expect a new head coach to be hired within the next week or two, because this process is going to take some time. They want to define what the defining traits and identity of Phoenix Suns basketball is all about, and then go from there, figure out the front office, go from there, and then hire a coach. So this might take a while. But at least they're being thorough this time around, because it did feel like, yes, they probably interviewed multiple candidates the last couple of times, but it felt like a very quick process, and hopefully this is more extensive this time around.
From everything that he said in terms of the qualities that they're looking for and whoever it is that's going to be even considered for their next head coach, which, Leo, yes, that is me, but he's not talking about me, I promise you. It sounds a lot like Chris Quinn. Yeah. If I'm being straightforward, transparent, and honest, the qualities that I've observed from him, even back to his playing days, yet alone once he transitioned from on the court to off the court, he strikes a lot of those qualities that he's speaking about. I can say the very same thing about Jerry Stackhouse as well, and Sam Cassell the same. If that's the crop, if that's the cloth that they're looking for, I don't think there's a wrong answer. If we're looking at those three, even if it's not directly those three, someone that's cut from that cloth, there's no wrong answer there.
No, I agree. We've talked a lot about coaches. If you've missed some of those deep dives that we've done recently since Mike Budenholzer was fired, or even like a month or two ago when we listed off a bunch of these names, highly encourage you to check out those conversations. But let's keep it rolling here with this sound. So we know that the Suns have to hire a new head coach, and we know this is not the first time that Mat Ishbia has had to do that. But this one really feels like they have to get this one right, and Mat Ishbia agrees.
We got to get the next hire right, and we will. The team and the roster that was constructed by James, Josh, the scouts, the front office is much better than a 36-win roster. So there's a lot of reasons why Coach Bud's not here. I'm not going to get to all those reasons, but definitely believe we should have won a lot more games and been a lot more competitive during those games as well. And so wish him the best, but it was the wrong coach for our organization and for that team. And at the end of the day, you can blame me for it because, I'm the owner at the end of the day.
Yeah, Suns continue to say that they believe this team was better than a 36-win team. I believe that too. That is why Bud is gone. In terms of actually getting the hire right, I will believe it when I see it, and not just, they hired this person, hooray, let's hold a press conference. Like, give me a year or two in, give me 2-3 years in, sustained success, and someone who keeps the job year in and year out and fits with this ideology that they're trying to build for the Suns moving forward. That needs to be the standard at this point, because you have had zero stability at the head coaching spot for the last 3 years now.
I definitely see kind of both sides of what you're saying, because yes, you need someone that's going to sustain, but that person also has to earn it. And I think that's the part that's really been missing more than anything over the last couple of tries for them.
Yeah.
Hopefully they strike that chord that they need to in this next decision made.
Yeah, they don't have a choice, because if they mess this up, then they are fumbling Devin Booker's prime even more than they already have. Who knows what type of players are going to want to come here? The weather's nice and all, but if I don't know who's going to be coaching or what your identity is, I'll go to another place where the weather is nice and they have more of an infrastructure. They have no choice but to get it right, but will they really is a question that we're waiting to see answered. But of course, they've gone through this process before. James Jones and Josh Bartelstein talked about what needs to change in order for them to become the right hires of the next head coach.
Time. I think it was evident given the time crunch and given where we were, that it wasn't as thorough or as deep as a search as we would like. Unfortunately, but fortunately for us, the season ended early, so it gives us more time to get this right. Unfortunately, the season ended too early, which means that we're in this position. But we're going to be diligent. And like I said, we're going to match the coach to the design of the franchise. The coach has to live and breathe and agree with everything that we're about. And that's the only way you can sustain it. It's easy to do it for a month. It's easy to do it for 6 months, a year, if you don't believe it and you don't live it. But over time, when you realize just how much we care about it, how important it is to us, and how intertwined it is into the daily fabric of the Phoenix Suns, if you're not about it, you won't be able to live it. So we're going to take our time. We're going to identify the attributes and traits that will resonate with our fans, resonate with our players, but more importantly, that I call the winning attributes that are sustainable.
The only thing I would add is, the league's changed a lot in the last 2 years, the way it's officiated, athlete, size. You look at the teams that are having success in the regular season, so level of innovation and doing things differently. I think Matt's points and James's points on starting with what do we want, what do we stand for, it's an organizational thing, and the coach has to fit into that. And of course, they have a seat at the table, and they're going to have ideas on how to make this team the best. But there's a fabric of who we're going to be that's not going to change year to year and coach to coach.
To one of the points that James Jones was making, I say this respectfully, could not disagree more. They needed someone that vehemently disagrees with all that preceded whoever it is that's in this position coming forward, to the extent where they understand what it looks like and what that leads to. They understand what it doesn't look like and what that leads to, and can not only hold themselves to account with the former and the latter, but also hold them accountable to being an acknowledgement of their faults from the past and not allowing for the ship to go off script as well. I think it needs to be someone that has a confidence about them that's able to do that for themselves, but also look them in the eyes and let them know, like, hey, man, we got to pick it up. We're not where we're supposed to be right now. We want to repeat what we did the last 2 seasons, or are we trying to go forward? Because it's not going to be easy. You have to meet this resistance with your own to end up overcoming what it is that you're trying to do going into next season.
Well, who's going to be on the roster next season? What's their process like with Kevin Durant? Because we all know what went down with that. We're going to give you their answers right after our final break. A lot of people in this chat are not a fan of what's going on in these video clips. And if you need to decompress later today, might I recommend Pure Edibles, especially the Kicks, which is their version of Starburst. They taste exactly like Starburst. And that's the best part about Pure, is that they're a full-fledged candy company. None of those bad tasting edibles that taste really gross and you don't want to chew them. Ugh. But beyond the taste, it's the effects as well. They are clearly listed on every single tin, whether it's sleep, relax, uplift, balance, and of course, it's a unique blend of cannabinoids such as CBG, CBN, CBD, and of course, THC. Plus, they're designed to be ripped in half or bit in half, making them easily shareable or easy to dial in your exact dose, which is the most important thing to do when you are new to trying edibles. So go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across state 48. And while you're driving around, make sure you stop at Circle K today, tomorrow, and especially on April 24th, 1 week from today. Inner Circle members can save 40 cents per gallon from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. And guess what? It's just by joining the Inner Circle, which is 100% free. And not only do you save 40 cents off per gallon a week from today, you save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, plus 3 cents off per gallon every day after that, eventually bumping up to 5 cents off per gallon as well. And it goes beyond gas, whether it's to snacks, drinks. They have member exclusive deals every single day. You have to sign up for the Inner Circle, and it is absolutely free and easy. You could have done it by the time that I read you this ad. You got to download the Circle K app, put in your phone number, put in your email, and boom, you're ready. Join the Inner Circle for free. Download the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. We still have quite a few sound bites to roll out here on PHNX Suns. Of course, y'all got to hit that like button. A ton of you in chat here on a Thursday afternoon. Kevin Durant, what the hell is going on, right? Where did it go wrong? What is it like going forward? First, James Jones was asked what they didn't know about this roster when they were building it around Kevin Durant that led to a disappointing tenure.
I'd say the major thing is just defensively, right? Having more of a focus on building a strong defensive system to support those guys. I mean, because they both, I mean, all three of them, Kevin, Devin, and Brad, carry a heavy offensive load. And so when you get three offensive players, it requires more movement. And when you're asking them to give more effort, defensively, you have to be extremely solid and have a deep defensive bench. And so if you look at it, you say the best way to help offensive players be successful over the long haul, not just for one season, but over 2 or 3 seasons, you have to have a deeper defensive bench. So if I had to say if there's one thing we would have done, it would have been to focus on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we've been saying for a while now that how are you going to put enough defenders, long-armed defenders around Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant cannot be your designated wing stopper, which is basically what he was for the first 2 years, especially when you don't play the rookie that you drafted for that specific reason. And I think the defense thing, how much talk there was about that, ties into the building of an identity. And because when you talk about defense in the NBA, a lot of times, yes, scheme and execution and personnel matter, but so does heart, so does effort, so does grit, so do a lot of the things that they're talking about. And I think we saw a lot from this Suns team with how lifeless they were, that they just didn't have that fight in them. And so when you're hearing this talk about defense constantly over and over, it almost feels like a nicer way of saying that these guys didn't have that dog in them, to be honest with you.
Yep, because when he said that the big three have to carry a heavy load, first thing that came to mind for me, so does Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And guess where Jason Tatum's been this season? He's been one of the best defenders in the league. Guess what else? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander carries a very heavy offensive load, literally and figuratively. Guess what he's also this season?
Yep.
A borderline all-defensive team type of defender, and one of the best steals guys and one of the best deflections guys in the entire league. Teams put him in action time and time again, and it just doesn't make sense to do it anymore because you're not just going to take advantage of him because is not going to allow it. Where is that copy and pasted into the Suns context?
Well, and I get what you're saying, but there's no defender as far as the Suns' big three that just is as good of a defender as Jason Tatum or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? And they can be better. But
it's more to Gerald's point. It's more on the effort side,
and I get
because
it.
if it's starting at the top, same way we talked about with the ownership in the front office. If they're making decisions and they're setting a certain tone, everything underneath is going to follow. If the big three are setting a certain tone, even if they do have a certain ceiling that they can reach individually, defensively, I promise you, if they're going out and they're doing this at practice every day, I promise you everybody else that even wants minutes in the rotation is going to come with a certain level that there's going to be a floor that's above average in terms of what they're bringing defensively off of effort alone. Ability is ability, but effort is...
I mean, I think Kevin Durant had a hell of a season defensively.
For sure.
Bradley Beal had moments, not always great. Devin Booker had a very underwhelming season defensively. And on the effort side of it, I agree with you on that 100%. But I also agree with what Maria said here, which is how the hell did they not think about defensive importance before now? We always knew what Beal, Book, and KD's strengths were. Are you serious? At the same time, I understand the effort thing. But you're building a team around Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. The number one thing you need to look outside of that, and it was clearly obvious, was defenders. Somebody that you could put out there that's athletic. That's why you draft Ryan Dunn, who was terrible as a prospect offensively, right? So him saying that isn't awesome. Maria also follows up with a $4.99 super chat, says, these answers should be making me feel better, but they're actually driving me up a wall. I'm not out on this team, but I'm tired of words and excuses. We'll also check out this other super chat here from Emilio saying, Gerald with the Gillespie cosign, I emoji, hashtag culture setter. Stand on business. If you know, you know. Go check out Gerald's Twitter mentions if you don't. But we don't have time for that, Gerald. Not today, no. But we have more time to listen to James Jones on Kevin Durant. Obviously, the trade deadline stuff went down. That soured the relationship reportedly between the two sides. And now they look at this offseason with a potential trade on the horizon. JJ was asked on their approach to Kevin Durant this offseason.
That hasn't changed. The fact that we aren't where we want to be from a winning perspective means that we have to look at everything. But a lot of changes that we'll make will be in the best interest of the team, and we evaluate all those things. And so Kevin, like, look, he had a tremendous season. Devin, Brad, those guys did great things individually. Right now, we're just trying to figure out how to collectively.
ADHD, and it's not that bad.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's consistent with what they said at the trade deadline. He was talking about how, like, we love Kevin, but we also have to evaluate what's best for the team. We're in a position where we're not winning enough games. That's kind of consistent with what I've been reporting. ESPN's been reporting. If you miss the play-in, you're probably not running it back. And I think if you read between the lines in a lot of these comments throughout the day, it did feel like they understand that, like, the big three model doesn't work. It has to be broken up. Obviously that starts with Beal in terms of importance of getting off that contract, but in terms of getting actual value back for breaking up that big three, Kevin Durant is the guy who's going to bring you back the most value in return. So they're never going to answer a question like that up front. I want everyone's expectations to be clear there. But if they were planning on keeping Kevin Durant and not engaging in trade negotiations, they would have come out and said that point blank.
I would just love to see them process-wise in sequence handle the Beal situation next. We talked about it a few times at the end of the regular season. In order of importance, Beal, Durant, and Bud. The first domino clearly fell the day after the end of the regular season. I think next in succession should be Bradley Beal. Mm-hmm. Figure out what trades are feasible from that based off of the expiration date of some playoff team, probably on the East Coast. And from there, assess what you get in return and see if you can build around that with KD and Devin Booker. If not, then you have to take that next progression step in terms of how you can facilitate a roster to contend with in some capacity around Devin Booker.
Yeah, there's no way he's going to sit down and be like, yeah, we're trading Kevin Durant this summer. It's 100% certain.
Right.
And we'll look for the best deal and we'll try to improve things. That's not how this stuff works. But that being said, it's the right answer again. You know, I mean, I get people are saying, what do you mean Bradley Beal did something good? You're going to go out there and trash your trade asset that has absolutely no value already? No, you're going to say he did some good things for you. Mm-hmm. But with KD and what's best for the team, like, oh, that approach hasn't changed. We're always doing what's best for the team. Okay, but if you've always been doing what's best for the team and what you have thought is best for the team has landed you here, do I want you handling such a big decision like the Kevin Durant trade? Because if Kevin Durant gets traded, which we all assume is most likely going to happen, even if it's not 100%, that's going to set the groundwork for the next couple of years of your franchise. Mm-hmm. And do I want those two guys, in whatever capacity they're going to be involved doing it, making that decision when they are the reason why that decision has to be made in the first place? Unequivocally, no. I don't want that, which is, again, harking back to my point of I need to see change because, Gerald, whether you trade KD, whether you don't trade KD, whether you're able to get off Beal, whether you're not able to get off Beal, you are trying to thread the needle to the max right now, and you need to have a lot of precision to do that, and that is not something that I have seen this front office pull off over the last couple of years.
No, and they're kind of operating at a deficit right now because coming into this exit interview, they were talking about, well, we're going to take some time. We're going to establish what being a Phoenix Sun is. We're going to figure out the front office. Then we're going to hire a coach. These are things that are all going to have to happen pretty quickly here as you approach the draft and the offseason and teams exiting the playoffs and suddenly reevaluating their position. So as much as they do have extra time because the season ended so quickly, they've got to get the ball rolling on a lot of these things so they can move forward.
Yeah, those are things that they should have gotten the ball rolling on 2 years ago. But we appreciate all of you who are watching on TV. Remember, the party always continues over at gophnx.com, which means it's time for overtime. And overtime means more questions answered from Mat Ishbia. Obviously, everybody considers this past Suns season a failure, the Kevin Durant tenure in Phoenix as a failure. And so far, Mat Ishbia's tenure as an owner has been a failure. So he was asked, outside of your time as an owner in the NBA, have you ever failed before, and how does that relate to your situation today?
Yeah, well, I've learned a lot from it. But the one thing I will comment on is that, yeah, you know, I've been pretty successful in the mortgage business. Don't think that it's been a straight line up. like in everything in life. It's been 22 years. In the first 19 years, I was not number one. I think I wasn't even in the top 500 the first 10 years, right? Like, so we built from 12 people to 9,000 people. There's a lot of things that you learn along the way and you make changes. The biggest thing that I'm able to do, and you'll learn about me, and I think you're probably seeing it and people can criticize for it, is when I make a mistake or things don't go well, I change fast and we make quick moves. And I'm not afraid to do that. And the mortgage business included. We tried that didn't work, pivot, right? And we will do that. And some people say, oh, be more patient, let it go. Like, patience isn't gonna be my strongest suit, okay? We're gonna try to compete and win, and we're gonna get better. And you know what? I'm very patient if I think we're on the right path and plan. So say it again, like I expect us to win more games next year, but let's just say we lost more games next year, but it was aligned the vision and the tone that I'm gonna set, and we're on the path, then we're gonna go that way. And that would mean I might sit and say there's no changes because we're actually online, I think as a development, and we're gonna go this way and go that way. Now, I don't expect us to lose more games next year, to be clear, but like that's how I think about it. So yes, there's always gonna be ups and downs in any business. You know, of course, I would love to win a championship my first 2 years as an owner. I promise you but it didn't happen. But I promise you we will. We will win championships with an S at the end here in Phoenix, and I'm gonna be here for it with you guys, and we'll have a more fun press conference then.
Oof.
Oof, indeed.
I appreciate someone that's willing to see things and not allow for time to waste when they see a proof of concept that something's not working, adjusting and adjusting again. But the key is, after adjusting, learn the lessons why you had to adjust in the first place, to then keep yourself out of position to need to adjust again, to adjust to your adjustment after you adjusted to adjustment before the adjustment that adjusted to that adjustment.
Yo, dog, I heard you like adjustments.
Correct.
So we got you an adjustment with some adjustments.
Exactly. So keep yourself out of those positions after making one adjustment, and then you can continue on with whatever your process is. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing in terms of clarity this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I don't hate that answer. I don't
Not at
hate
all.
the idea that we're going to pivot when something works, because that we knew that this was a 1 or 2 year title window. We knew that if it didn't work, they would have to pivot. They're doing that. You know, it's not something worth throwing a parade over. Obviously, this year sucked. Last year sucked too.
Mm-hmm.
I do worry a little bit about the whole patience is not my strong suit bit, but he did mention, like, if we're on a plan, if we have a set plan, and we're following that plan and we believe in that plan, then I will be patient. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see that. But it does feel like, based on a lot of what has been said, that like this team is going to take a step back next year in terms of title contention. They're not going to, you know, be uncompetitive. Obviously, the goal for Matt and for everybody involved is to try to win games, put a good team around Devin Booker. But between that and what he said about spending, it does feel like they're prepared to commit to more of a long-term plan.
Yeah, and before we get to the spending comment, I want to just make a quick comment on this. I love that he will acknowledge that he's wrong and that things need to change, and that's the right path. There's also such a thing as overcorrection, like the Phoenix Suns team building their out the roster to face the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs after losing to the Denver Nuggets and then never getting to the point where you face them again.
Mm-hmm.
I really want them to correct these things, but I also don't want it to be all in on the complete opposite direction. What we've learned is they like to go all in on something.
Yes.
And if it's all in on a plan, that's great. But if that plan doesn't have nuance, doesn't have a middle ground, you're going to find yourself not in a good spot, right? OKC is win now and accumulate draft picks for the future. Right. Boston is win now, but also focus on the future. Lock up extensions, build through the draft, and also build through acquiring star free agents, right? Like, all of the best teams in the NBA are able to kind of walk that line. So I want to see them walk that line instead of commit fully into one thing, because we've seen that just hasn't worked. But like you mentioned, Gerald, Ishbia was not committing to spending on the highest payroll in the NBA again. I don't blame him. This is what he had to say about it.
Don't want to have the highest paid team and doesn't make the playoffs, right? That's embarrassing and disappointing, right? So spending is not something that like the front office is like, oh, Matt says we can't do this because of money. Like we want to win. I'm a fan. Like, I'm with you guys. We want to win. Money's not going to be an obstacle, but at the same time, I'm not foolish. I don't expect us to have the highest payroll in the NBA next year. and I don't expect us to not make the playoffs next year. So that answers both the question at the same time. But I'm aware of all the aprons, the first apron, the second apron, all the rules that tie to all those things, and we're definitely going to make adjustments but it's not to spend less money. Right? Like I make a lot of decisions here in Phoenix, and hopefully, back to I think answered one of the questions earlier about ownership. Like I make a lot of decisions that are not about, like most people own a business, it's like, how do you make money? The business is not here to make money. The business is here to win, do great things in the community, make it a great fan experience, right? Set a right culture, be a leader in the NBA and WNBA, and win. And so we'll do some different things, but I don't expect us to have the highest payroll next year.
Again, this is an acknowledgement that what we have tried has not worked, and we're not changing our approach because I mind spending money. We're changing our approach because the players that we went all in on did not work. It didn't gel. It didn't fit. So like he said it a couple of times, I don't expect us to have the highest payroll. That to me indicates a step back, and we knew it was coming with a potential KD trade, with whatever they do with Bradley Beal. But for me, if you were someone that was holding on to the hope that they can keep Kevin Durant, it is hard to not have the highest payroll in the NBA when you're committing $100 million plus to two players. So it does kind of feel like, as much as Matt at one point in the presser said, I'm not going to talk about specific players or trades or contracts or whatever, all of these comments piled on top of each other makes it seem like we are building around Devin Booker. We are establishing an identity and a culture around him, and it's probably not going to involve the other two of the big three. That's what I took from it, at least.
Some of that might be the best route towards getting the change that they desire, because that is what's going to breed sustainability. Having a foundation laid, having all of your ducks in a row, and then starting to build out your formula for success, but stemming from that in particular. Not trying to, and that's not an indictment against him, because owners being willing to spend money is what they should be doing, but not trying to cheat steps in that process by going to get the big, bright, shiny thing, the newest kid on the block that everybody wants,
Right.
just because you can. It's like, what about the fit? Is everything around you fitting? Is everything around you in alignment with the culture that you're looking to establish? And are you taking those right steps in terms of what you identify as your proof of concept?
Yeah, I get it and I understand it. And JDQ says, I don't know how this doesn't excite y'all compared to what we have had. Matty Ish said, chill, I got this. Listen, I will take Mat Ishbia over the disgraced former owner every day of the week.
That's not even a conversation.
100%.
And here's the thing. I got excited about him saying all this when he first took over. But the thing is, it's well done over well said. We need to see it happen before I personally get excited. Yet again, and I think a lot of Suns fans feel the same way. And part of that is seeing a change in the culture. Gerald, you started the Ishbia press conference and you ended the Ishbia press conference. Call you bookend, Gerald. Your final question was about how he changes the culture.
Yeah, because he talked a lot about, I'm going to be the tone setter. I am going to be the one that is helping us establish an identity. And for a lot of Suns fans, there is the concern that he is an over-involved owner, that he is suffering from new owner syndrome where he's trying to make a splash. So I asked him what his response is to that perception and how he specifically kind of wants to look at changing the culture.
I believe, I'm the owner of the team, but I always say the team is the city's, Phoenix. My job is I serve the city, and try to deliver what I say we're going to deliver and what they would be proud of. And that's where the tone starts, right? And so the vision starts with me delivering for what the fans want, right? Which is a competitive team that's fun to watch, that competes out there and has a chance at winning a championship, right? And so that's what I believe. And so I'm not a believer that an owner, I'm going to buy a team and I'm going to buy the team and I'm going to go sit in the box and just watch and just cheer them on, and not like, I have to be accountable as well. And just like any owner of any business, right? But I think the delineation, when people talk new owners, and like people are just silly. Like, is Matt making calls to the GM to make a trade? And what does Ishbia think about this draft pick? Like I think what my front office thinks about it, right? Like, I'm with them, and like, now do I have to have the right front office, the right scouts, the right personnel? Of course, and that's on me. But new owner syndrome, that's just what the media likes to say. Just if we make a bad trade or something doesn't work the way we expect, it must be the new owner doing what I think it's an honor to be an owner in the NBA. in the WNBA. And it's a privilege to be able to answer these questions, and it's going to be a privilege to answer these questions every year with you guys. And I believe that my job is to set the tone. My job is to set the vision. My job is to help execute that vision, to find the right people to deliver that, and to deliver that to the Suns fans and the Mercury fans here in Phoenix. And when we don't, I'll stand here and tell you we didn't do a good enough job. But new owner syndrome, oh, he's trying to make a splash. Like, no, we're trying to win. And we're trying, and I'm going to follow the lead of the basketball experts, because I think I know basketball real well, but I don't know it as well as my front office or the scouts or the coaches. And so, like, I'm with them, but I'm collaborative and I'm part of it. But don't think that I'm going to be, oh, he owns a team, he's going to come to a couple of games and say good job, guys, and keep it moving. That's not me, and that's never going to be me here in Phoenix.
I kind of believe what he's saying when he says that, like, it's not new owner syndrome. We're just trying to win. Look, knowing what we know about Mat Ishbia, listening to him speak for the last 2.5 years, this is how he is all the time, like in every aspect of his life, in his mortgage company, in waking up every day like 4 or 5 in the morning. Like, he is just that person. And so I don't think it's like a new owner trying to make a splash. I think it's an owner that's going to continue to try and push for winning. And we'll be honest, like, the first 2 years have worked out incredibly poorly. They put the Suns at a deficit in terms of their long-term aspirations and where they go from here. And this is going to be a crucial summer in trying to get that back on track, whether that's for the short term or for the long term. So they have a lot of work to do there, but he's going to continue to approach this with the mindset. He said this many times: I'm going to be the owner of this team for 50 years, and we're not going to win every year. It's just the nature of the NBA. But we are going to win multiple championships, like he said, because we're going to continue to push the envelope. We're going to continue to make everything outside of the basketball a winning experience so that people want to come play here, that fans want to watch this team play. And now it's our job to get the basketball side of it right. So I completely understand that people are out on Mat Ishbia. They think he's overly involved. And I think listening to him talk about setting an identity and a culture and taking that on himself is probably going to be worrisome in terms of how involved he's going to be moving forward. But in terms of actually making the basketball decisions, I still think he is the enabler in all of this. And I think he has to re-examine his approach. But the proof is going to be in the pudding. They can go up there and say everything they want for 28 minutes, for 40 minutes, which is what we got today. But it's all going to come down to how you execute this summer, what coach you hire, and how you're able to actually establish a culture that we can point back to this moment months later and say, they were right. They actually followed through on what they were telling us.
Yeah, I never got the sense that it was the whole new owner syndrome thing. In fact, if I'm being honest, I always felt like that was kind of a lazy take.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had an issue with someone coming new to a space and having their own principles and merits with which they want to go about doing that job, rather than trying to copy and paste or reverse engineer the way that somebody else got success, because your situation is not the same as what Mat Ishbia's is with the Phoenix Suns. So you can't just copy and paste somebody else's ways in which they got successful and expect for you to breed the exact same, if not more, results than they did. You have to have some type of principles that you're standing on. And I mean, I think he's as authentic as it gets, especially in the front office and ownership realm of the NBA, in terms of being a straight shooter, acknowledging his faults, acknowledging his strengths, but also being able to kind of talk your way through streamlining what the route to success is. And to close things out, we've heard everything he said. Everything sounds really good. Now it's about time to execute, and that's what I'm here to assess. What's the execution process, and what are the results, and what's the speed at which things are taking place based off of those execution points?
You change the culture through action. Action number 1, you need somebody new in the front office. Action number 2, let that person hire a young up-and-coming head coach. Action number 3, trade Bradley Beal. Action number 4, look and do a Kevin Durant trade and go from there. But I will not trust anything that was said today if 365 days from now, hell, if 60 days from now, we're sitting here thinking about some of the same problems that this team has been going through. But what do you think? Are you worried about where the Phoenix Suns are after the exit interviews with James Jones, Josh Bartelstein, and Mat Ishbia? There's also so much more that they answered and that they talked about. That is in their full exit interview availability that we have up on PHNX Sports for you right now. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are almost at 40K subscribers. Be the one that helps us get to 40K. We appreciate you all so much. Sign up to become a diehard today. Go phnx.com/join for just $36. Gerald's always pumping out wonderful articles. I know he's got to go work on one right after this, so we're going to get out of here. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. Shout out to Noah, not just behind the Mac today, but behind the camera, going to media availability, getting that video, getting that audio, cutting it all up, posting it all before the show, and then being ready to run the show. What a day for Noah. We appreciate him so much and all of his hard work. Also appreciate Stevie. You can follow him at StephenPG3. That's Stephen with the PH. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget, but you're already doing that, I would imagine, on all socials. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. And remember, don't make fun of people who talk fast, because maybe somebody who talk fast can hear and see you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.